Picture this. You're leading a team meeting and you're in person, and everyone's in the room. You can see their faces, and you ask them, tell us about yourself. Tell us about some of your strengths. Tell us what you're good at. And immediately when you ask that question, the extroverts jump in immediately and they're like, I'm great at X and I love doing Y. And my superpower is Z. And the people that are more quiet, we'll call these the introverted ones. They're like, I don't know really what I'm good at. I guess I'm a hard worker. And you know that there's something more under that introversion. These folks in the room, you've seen them in action. You know how they solve problems and how they build relationships, and you know how they execute everything so flawlessly that you don't even have to really worry about it. But they can't name it, or they just won't name it. So the team never learned that they bring something to the group that is unique, it's dynamic, and it's something that this team definitely needs. Well, what if I told you that the problem wasn't the quiet team members and it wasn't that they didn't have strength? It's asking them to talk about themselves. That feels a little cringe. It feels like it's hard to quantify. It's hard. Maybe they'll be judged. And today, I'm going to show you how I have used a football analogy in a recent coaching session. It wasn't my first time, but I haven't used it in a while. And I brought this football analogy into this team so that we can talk about collective leadership and how working together is better for everyone, but also that every position on the team matters. And then I use visual explorer cards to get the quietest people to talk, to speak, to get out of their comfort zones and share things that they may have never shared before, or they never will share because they don't quite know how to toot their own horn. But how I get these visual explorer cards so that they can actually feel comfortable that they are talking about a picture and not technically themselves. Welcome to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. I'm Tashina Braxton, and this episode is going to be all about collective leadership. I'm going to talk about what it means and how to unlock it on your team. Now, most teams, they think collective leadership means everyone is doing everything. There's a lot of inclusivity. We have to make sure we hear all voices. We have to bring everyone together. Everyone has to be an equal participant in everything. But that's not how winning teams work. Winning teams know that every position is different. They're bringing something new to the table, unique to the table, and every position is essential. So today, what you're going to walk away with is a framework for teaching your team what makes a good team. This is the football principle. And then a tool to get everyone, especially the quiet ones, to share their unique strengths so you know where you can position them and where you can play them. Now, I recently led an in-person team session and I watched this transformation when I stopped asking people to talk about themselves and gave them pictures to talk about instead. And it changed everything. So before I get the team that I'm working with to actually share their strengths, I help I had to help them understand something fundamental. What makes a good team? Because here's what most people think. They think a good team is a group of talented individuals who work hard. And I would say that that's partially true, but it's not complete information. I remember like walking into this room, I was nervous to share this with them because I didn't know how many people actually understood the game of football. It is very complex, like most of our teams. There's dotted lines to who's in charge and all these different things. And so I was very nervous about what would happen when I started talking about football. And when I did that, and I asked them, who understands football? I was so shocked that more than 50% of the room raised their hand and said, I know all about football. And the icing on the cake was that somebody in the room was from Seattle. And as you know, if you're listening to this in February or January of 2026, you know that next month, February 2026, is the Super Bowl, and Seattle has made it to the challenge. And so when we started talking about this, I first started with a football. I literally grabbed a football out of my bag and said, "We're about to talk about football." And I remember everyone looking like, "Whoa." And this is a group of scientists. They're used to data and number and slides. And here I am with this prop of a football. And it was so funny because my son was like, "Mom, you got to take a football for this football analogy the night before." I was rehearsing with my husband to make sure I understood all the plays. Now, I'm much more further than what I used to be. I was never into football whatsoever, but my 2 youngest sons play football, with the very youngest son really into it, more so than the other. The other one is more of a basketball player, and I've had to learn what football is all about. I also recently, and I use the football analogy years ago, I would say maybe in 2020 to 2023, and I used it for a team because the leader was into football and they were sharing their journey line and they were going to share all about how sports, in particular football, has helped them to become a leader. And so I used the football analogy to kind of vibe with him and go and bring that home so that the team understood and it was connected. And recently, now that I'm all into football, I've learned how to think about football, what it means to do all the different things. If you are as old as me, you remember Nintendo and you remember watching or playing Techno Bowl. That was like one of the first games of Nintendo. And I thought I knew what I needed to know about football just from playing that game as a young girl, only to realize it's much more complex and complicated than that. And so I started with this football and I'm like out there and I'm like, okay, even if you're not a football person, please stay with me because this is about your team. So I had to get them to understand and get in the mindset of the lens that I wanted them to look through to understand that this was going to align. It was going to correlate exactly about their team. And I started and I said, a football team, there is 11 positions on the field. And what's critical about this is every position is different and every single position is essential to actually winning. So I'm going to break down some of these positions because I think even for you, the listener, or whoever's watching this, it's important that you know some of these positions and what they do because you're going to understand why it all came together and how you can use this in your team as well. So we have the quarterback. This is the leader who's the most visible. Think of people that you probably heard like Tom Brady, Purdy, these people who are significantly out in front. And I think his name is Hertz or Hurd. I can't remember, but he plays with Philadelphia. He's a quarterback. And these are the folks that are calling the plays. They are the people that everyone is watching. And they are super essential to the team because they are, they're leading, they're front and center. But what people miss is that the quarterback cannot win a game alone. There's only one ball and it needs to get to the touchdown, to the end zone. And they cannot do anything else without the other 10 positions or individuals that is on that field with him. If a quarterback has no offensive line, they're going to get sacked, meaning they're going to get tackled. And a quarterback with no receivers has no one to throw the ball to. And a quarterback without a running back can't hand off the ball. Now, the quarterback will get all the glory, but they cannot win this alone. And what somebody said that was like insightful is that not only does the quarterback get all the glory, but they will also get all the blame if the team does not win. So there's both sides, but you can see how essential and important this position is. Now, when it comes to the other positions, it's harder for people to realize at the beginning or at face value if you were just like kind of a casual a watcher of football like I was. It's hard to see how all the other positions are essential as well. But you have an offensive line as well. And these are the protectors on the field. They strategize. They create space for others to succeed. For others, they create the path for others to get through. They aren't the ones typically that score the touchdown. They don't get the highlight reels, and most fans can't even name them. They really don't know who they are. But without them, the whole offense line collapses. On your team, if you think take this to the corporate space, these are the people working behind the scene, building the systems, they are creating the processes, and they are protecting the work. Now we have the running back. These are the people who are going to execute. They have to execute the plays. You hand them the ball, they're going to run. They don't need a lot of discussion. They just need clarity on what they're supposed to do, and they are going to deliver. On your team, these are the people who take a plan and they make it happen. I like to say they GSD, get stuff done. Then you have your wide receivers. These are your game changers. They will innovate. They're looking for the big play. They're looking for the bold move that they can make. And on your team, these are the people saying, what if we try something completely different? Now, these are the people on the field, but a team is nothing without the coach. The coach is just as essential as the actual players. These are the people that are your strategic thinkers. They're the ones that see the whole field. They're the ones that's calling the plays based on what they're observing that's happening in the moment. They are not on the field, but they're essential to the team winning because they develop the talent. They ensure that there's a lot of skill building. They create a game plan. They see patterns that the players can't see from the ground level. So if you don't know, a lot of times there's somebody way at the top of the bleachers and they're looking down as one of the coaches for the team and they have their little headset on and they're talking to the main coach, telling them what they see and what plays they can possibly run. This is how complex and intertwined all this stuff is happening on the field just to win a game of football. But I got one more position, the general managers. These are the visionaries. They are the ones building the team for the long term. They're the ones making decisions about who's on the roster, what resources are needed, and what the future looks like. They're not calling plays, they're not on the field, but without them, there is no team. On your team, these are your long term thinkers, the people who are making the 3 to 5 year plans. They're your resource allocators. They know how much the budget is and what they can give to you. And these are essentially the people who build the foundation for culture. So we like to call them the culture builders. So here's what I told this team. I gave them the background. They helped me talk about some of this, especially the people in the room who already understood what football was. And I told them, first I asked them, who's the actual leader? And I think they thought it was a trick question because they started going, "Well, I think it's everybody." Like, but they were very unsure. And the answer is yes, it's all of them. All of them are a leader. But I told them, and I wanted to emphasize that you can't win with 11 quarterbacks. You can't even win with just players on the field. You need quarterbacks and the offensive line and the running backs and the receivers. But you also need the coaches, the general managers, and every single one of those positions are essential. And I brought this home to talk about collective leadership. Collective leadership does not mean everyone leads the same way. It means that everyone understands their position and how it contributes to the win. The quarterback doesn't need to block the offensive line. The coach doesn't need to run plays like the running back. The general manager doesn't need to be on the field at all. But they all need to understand how their position makes the team win, makes the team better, holds the team down. They need to know this. And that's collective leadership. Not everyone doing the same thing, but, and also not everyone doing everything, but everyone is doing their thing and understanding how it connects to everyone else's thing. So it's having this systems understanding of what's happening on the field, knowing your play and the role that other people have to play, and how that comes together so nicely, like a puzzle, because they're all essential. That is collective leadership. I wanted this team to walk away and really understand their position matters. They could say, my position matters, my strengths matter, right? Because sometimes we get the introverted ones and they're like, I don't know if it matters. Like, it doesn't really matter. Or they have a strength that's similar to mine. No, I want them to understand that their position matters. Even if they're not the quarterback, they are essential to winning the team or to having the team win. Okay. They are essential. Now, so we went through this whole process and I'm like, okay, so after they understand the football principle and how every position matters, we needed to see the diversity of strengths because sometimes we try to position people in places that they should not be. And sometimes we don't give people the opportunity to fully step into their position and actually be the owner of that role, that job, whatever it is, and the things that need to happen, even for a decision. Sometimes we don't allow that to happen. And so that is when I wanted them to start to recognize their strength, the diversity of the strengths on the team, because collective leadership is about everyone contributing their unique thing. So I thought to myself in that meeting, I was like, okay, because at the beginning of the meeting, I had already spread out these visual explorer cards. And I was like, I'm going to use this for the strength process. And I was thinking, okay, I've already got them to the edge with the football exercise. It was a little cringe for some, but they jumped right in once people started talking and they understood how it correlated to a corporate team. So now we're doing these visual explorer cards. And it could have been a very hard part because getting people to actually say what their position is can be difficult. It can be super hard. And what I see happen most times when we're asking people what their strengths are, what I see most team leaders do is they will come in and they'll like, okay, team, now that you understand this, let's go around the room. Let's tell us what position you play. What strengths do you bring to this team? And they hope that people will just start saying, I'm a hard worker, I'm a learner, I'm a strategist, I'm an executor. I get things done. I know how to innovate. I know how to write. They just think people are going to do that. But you know what typically happens when we do that? What typically happens is the extroverts are going to jump in. They're gonna be like, "I'm definitely a quarterback." And they're not gonna say it like that, but if we were thinking in those terms, like, "I'm definitely a quarterback. I love leading. I'm great at strategy. I'm great at vision." Or, "I'm a wide receiver. I love innovation. I'm always thinking outside the box. I know exactly who I am." And then we'll see the introverts that are like, I'm not sure. I'm probably support, or I'm probably a hard worker." And it's not because they don't have strengths, but because talking about yourself, claiming your position, naming your value feels like bragging, especially for women, especially for Black women, especially for the onlys who are already worried about being seen so much or not enough. Here's what I know from coaching introverted leaders and also being an introverted leader myself is that the people with the most valuable strength are often the worst at naming them. And it's not because they're not self aware, but because self promotion feels uncomfortable. It feels unsafe. It feels presumptuous. It just feels not like something we should be doing. We've been taught speak when you're spoken to. We've been taught, that's just what you're supposed to do. We've been taught it's not a big deal. Anyone can do that. And so we feel like we can't really talk about what we do, who we are, and what we bring in our strengths to our teams, to our relationships, to the world. We have a hard time. And so if I would have asked him directly, what are your strengths? I'm going to get the most generic undersold answers possible, or it was really going to be like cricket. And the team, they're going to miss out on knowing what strengths are in the room sitting right next to them. And you'll have a boss or a leader in the room who won't know how to utilize their direct report. You'll have a direct report feeling like they're not being used to their highest potential or capacity. And so it goes nowhere. It's just like, how do we get those people talking and saying things that are not superficial, that are meaningful, and that everyone in the room understands? So I did something different and I pulled out some Visual Explorer cards. Now, Visual Explorer cards are like a set of diverse images. They're photographs, they're abstract art, they're nature scenes, architecture, people in action, objects, patterns. And each card is meant to evoke something. It's to spark a thought, it's to give you language for something that, but you haven't said yet. And so I spread all these cards out on the table, like I said before. And it's funny because I spread them all on the table to begin with because I didn't want that to interfere with, the time and the flow that we were doing. But nobody really noticed it. So I was like, hey, you have some cards in front of you. And because we're in person and with physical cards, about 50 or 60 cards that I laid out so that everyone could see. And then I said, stand up, walk around, look at the cards, grab 2 or 3 cards that speak to you, that represent a unique strength on how you lead and what you bring to this team. I told them, don't overthink it, just pick the 2 to 3 that resonate with you the most. And so everyone got up, they picked out their cards. The extroverted folks picked out their cards. The introverted folks, they picked out their cards. And the quiet ones who could never claim or really speak or really have the language or words to talk about their strength, they picked their card. And because I wasn't asking them to talk about themselves per se, I was asking them to talk about this picture. It felt there, it was like the feeling of like relief, the feeling of like, okay, this isn't like high stakes. This is something that they felt that they can do. And what I noticed was there were like 2 people who picked a card of a parent and a child. The parent was teaching, guiding, or spending time. There was some connection. And they said, I think my strength is nurturing the team. I help people grow, I help them see their potential, and I develop it. It was like some coach energy right there. Like they were telling us in the room that they might not necessarily be the one on the field scoring, but they are the one making sure everyone else can score. That's what this parent child photos were that we saw. Another one was the leader actually picked up a card of an astronaut, and the astronaut was alone. And it was alone in space, and he's like, sometimes my strength is being able to go into uncharted, unknown territory by myself. I'm comfortable with the unknown. I'll explore what needs to be explored and then I'll bring it back to the team. It was like a picture that talked about their innovation, how they take risks. This is like the wide receiver who's willing to run the route no one else will. They are not afraid to go into uncharted territories and see what happens on a team or on the field. And so these are just 2 examples, but they really show that when people are given something visual, it helps them to paint the picture or create the story in their head because now they can see the strength. It's not like thinking about it and being in your head and you're like, well, I think this. No, that visual card helps to pull out something in your brain that you can actually see and create a story from. And had I not used those visual explorers, there are just some things that would have never happened Before I keep going, I want to pause for just a moment. This episode is brought to you by my one-on-one leadership coaching for introverted women of color who are doing their best work but feel stuck when it comes to career growth, influence, and positioning. This isn't about motivation or productivity. It's about learning how to name where you want your career to go, understanding how leadership decisions actually get made, and positioning yourself for opportunities without becoming someone you are not. I work closely with a small number of clients at a time so we can focus on your relationships, your leadership identity, and the systems shaping your career trajectory. You can learn more about working with me one-on-one by checking the link in the show notes. And let's get back to the episode. I was happy that we got past some of the barriers that typically come up. There were things like it really removed the pressure of self promotion. If you are like me, if you're an introverted woman, and you're like me, it is hard to self promote sometimes. And so when you're able to, instead of saying I'm great at X, and you're saying they're like, this is a card that resonates with me or shows who I am as leader because I like to connect the pieces together. They have a visual, they have a story that they can actually tell that other people will understand, and they have a better time articulating that thing. It just makes everything feel so much safer, less like bragging and more like sharing. And like I said, it also gives language to the intangible strengths. Sometimes strengths are hard to name. They just are. Like I'm detail oriented doesn't capture the essence of sometimes what people are trying to say. But if you were like, I'm like a lighthouse and I help people see what's coming, that's vivid. That's memorable. It also helped create some psychological safety. When everyone picks a card, everyone contributes. No one can just opt out. No one can hide, but no one feels like they're singled out either. And then lastly, it helps the teams see each other differently. When this woman said that she was a lighthouse, because somebody really did say that, the team learned something about her that they didn't know, or maybe they knew it, but they didn't even have the language for it. And so now they could say, let's talk to such and such because they're like a lighthouse and they're going to be able to help us see what's missing. Now, I'm not saying be corny like that, like, let's go start our lighthouse, but that would be in your mind that this lighthouse is connected to this individual and they're going to help you see what they're missing. They're going to come to you. So it gives that language. And just doing this exercise, I watched people like lean forward. I saw them like pull a card, said, oh my God, this is you. Or when someone would say something, oh my God, that's totally you. I watched the introverted ones speak with confidence. They weren't um, pulling back. And I watched the team members actually look at each other like, I didn't know that about you. I saw some people taking notes and just really thinking about what they were hearing and what skills or what strengths they have overlooked for a long time. This is not just a team building exercise. This was a team learning how to be a team and notice the other team members because stories are vivid and they make listeners see the room, not just hear, not to just be there and, witnessing, but you can actually see what's in the room. You can feel it. You can understand what's going on. And I remember the leader coming to me when there was some heads down, like kind of break offs just to kind of wrap your thoughts up. And he was like, oh my God, those cards were so amazing. Those were, I love that exercise. And some individuals decided to keep the cards. Now, those cards are super expensive. So you don't have to give them away. I just have a lot of boxes. I have 2 sets of the Visual Explorer cards. And so for me, I'm like, oh yeah, like you can take one. There's a lot more where that came from. And some people did take one because it was helpful for them. And also it could be a conversation starter when they put it in their office or at their cubicle, things like that. So people would understand those strengths that those people bring into the workplace. So the team shifted by the end of this and they started to understand that the football principle intellectually lets you know every position matters. And they already know that because they've seen it, they've experienced it. I'm like, here are the positions. They really understand what collective leadership is and why it's important to point out the strengths for people to see, for people to understand, and for people to learn something different so that they know how to bring you along, bring you on board, connect with you, and do things like that. Now, collective leadership looks like these four things. The first thing is everyone knows their position. They're not all trying to be quarterbacks. They know that they are the offensive line, they protect the work, they create space for others, and that position isn't a lesser position. It's also a leadership position and it's essential. They also know each other's positions. Now, when they're in a meeting and they hit a problem, someone can say, again, I need such and such because they're like a lighthouse on this and they'll help us see what we're missing. Or let's bring in the person who picked out the bridge on the card because they're going to help us connect these two ideas. You see how that works? Because someone knows what you bring, they're able to ask you to come in to use those strengths to win the game. That's what's happening. The third thing is that they appreciate the diversity of strengths. They're not looking for everyone to contribute the same way. They're looking for everyone to contribute their way. So we spend a lot of time talking about I don't want to step in someone on someone's toes. I don't want to do something that somebody doesn't want me to do. I want to be careful. I hold back, or that person is stepping all in my lane and they need to stay in their lane. If you know the strengths and you understand what strength is needed to deliver on whatever you're working on, you, my friend, will appreciate that everyone contributes in their way and that it is an essential piece to the puzzle. They will understand that. And then the last thing is that the quiet ones feel valued. The introverts aren't trying to be more extroverted at all. I wholeheartedly really suggest against that. So don't try to become more extroverted. But what could happen is they start claiming their strengths because now you're comfortable talking about your strengths because you use a picture. And so that may be something that helps you to develop the language where over time you won't need the picture to help guide you. And the team will start to learn more about you. They'll learn that quiet doesn't mean that you're weak or you're uninterested or you're aloof. And it could mean that you're very strategic and thoughtful and essential. That's what can happen when you are really focusing on collective leadership and what that really means. So here's what I want you to understand. Collective leadership isn't about doing everything. It's about everyone doing their thing and the team understanding how those things work together. The football principle taught them what a good team is. The visual explorer cards gave them how to claim their position on that team. I'll say that again. The football principle taught them what a good team is, and the visual explorer cards gave them how to claim their position on that team. And when you start to combine these two things together, you don't just have a team, you have collective leadership. And that's so needed today. If we want to get anything done, especially in the world of AI, we do better going together. So let's bring this all together. I started with the football principle because I needed this team to understand you cannot win with 11 quarterbacks. Every position is different, every position is essential. That's the foundation, that's the mindset shift, and that's what makes collective leadership possible. But understanding it intellectually isn't it, it's not enough because if I'd ask people to name their position, to claim their strengths, most of them won't do it. It's too intellectual. It's too judgy. It's too high stakes for a lot of people. So when you use Visual Explorer cards, it gives them a way to share their strengths and it doesn't feel like self promotion. It doesn't feel like you're after something or you have a hidden agenda. And what will happen is that the quiet ones speak up, the team learns about each other, and collective leadership move from a concept to a reality. So these are the two parts you're going to need. The first part is the framework of football. Your team needs to understand what makes a good team. They need to understand that the diversity of strengths is the goal, not the problem. The second thing is that they need the tool, which is the visual explore cards. Your team needs a way to claim their strengths that feel safe, and visual tools remove the pressure of it removes the pressure and makes sharing very natural. When you combine the framework and the tool, you get teams where everyone knows their position and values it. Everyone knows each other's positions and leverages it. And the quiet ones contribute as fully as the loud ones. And collaboration isn't forced, it's natural because people understand how they fit together. Your team already has everything it needs to win: quarterback, the offensive line, the running back, the receivers, and so on and so forth. They're all there. You're not missing talent, you're missing two things: one, a shared understanding of what makes a good team, and two, a safe way for people to claim their position on that team. You give them those two things and you start to watch what happens. So, here are some reflection questions that I want you to think about this week. Do you have 11 quarterbacks on your team, or do you have offensive linemen, running backs, and receivers who are trying to act like quarterbacks because that's how they get value? Ooh, that was spicy. And who are the quiet ones on your team? What strengths are they sitting on that they've never named because you've never given them a way to share it? And if you lead a team, here is what I want you to try. First, teach them the football principle. Help them understand that every position is essential and the diversity of strength is what wins. Second, don't ask them to talk about themselves directly. Give them something visual to talk about instead. And it could be visual explorer cards. It could be asking them to draw their strength. It could be showing images and asking which one represents how they contribute. It could even be improv and you have them make a movement that shows what their strength is. Like, of course, I'm strong on the team will be, muscles. You'll probably put your arms up, right? So that's typically what happens. But just give them a way to contribute and share without feeling like they're bragging. I promise you, your quietest member has a strength that once named will change how the team works together. They just need a lighthouse card or a bridge card or a potter's wheel card. They just need a picture to talk about, whatever it is, instead of having to talk about themselves. So that's what you want to do. You want to bring this visual element because and you can bring this visual element not just for strength, but if you want to talk about innovating something new and you're trying to get people to contribute on like, what would it look like? And they pick these cards. It could just be used for all types of things, right? So you'll be creative, figure out what it is that or how you want to use them, but it helps to kind of get a different area in your brain to start working and start to be a little bit more creative and hopefully help you find a language to describe whatever you're trying to describe. Now, look, I know that you might be thinking, Tashina, my team doesn't need cards. We just need to be more direct. We are adults. And I hear you. I really do. But here's what I've learned: the people who most need to share their strengths are the least likely to do it when asked directly. Not because they're not self aware, not because they don't have confidence, but because for introverts and for women and for the onlys, self promotion can feel so risky. It feels presumptuous and it feels like you're doing too much. But once you give them a picture and you give them a card to explain, suddenly it's not about them, it's about the card and the words flow. I watched it happen in that room. I watched the excitement they had picking those cards. I watched the excitement that the leader had to come to me and tell me how excited he was. That is what you want because you want your team to see each other for the first time. Really, really see each other. Again, this isn't just about team building. This is about creating collective leadership and building teams where every position knows that it's essential, where the offensive line gets just as much as respect as the quarterback because you cannot win with 11 quarterbacks. You need every position and you need every position to know its value. This has been Leadership Beyond the Title. If this made you think differently about your team, share with another leader, leave a review, or subscribe. Remember, your team isn't quiet because they don't have strengths. They're quiet because you are asking them to name their strengths in the wrong question. You need every position and you need every position to know this value. I hope this episode has resonated with you. You're taking away something that you can use today. I'm Tashina Braxton, and if it made you think differently about your team, share it with another leader, leave a review, or subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to my other platforms as well. Remember, your team isn't quiet because they don't have strength. They're quiet because asking them to talk about it or to name it is the wrong question. Give them a picture and watch them tell exactly who they are. And as you go out in the world, remember or ask yourself this question: what does leadership beyond the title look like? Talk to you soon. Bye.